With Klaviyo, there's a new way to grow your business on your own terms. All your data in one customer platform. Personalized email and SMS experiences in minutes. And all the tools you need to get smarter over time. Own your data. Own your growth. Klaviyo.
Hello and welcome to the very last session. Yes, the last session of our 2022 eCommerce MasterPlan Virtual Summit. Thank you so much, all of you who've been tuning in to the summit itself. Thank you for sticking around for the Q&A. And for those of you joining us on the YouTube stream, the LinkedIn stream and the Twitter stream, hello, welcome to you as well. You're probably wondering what on earth I'm going on about this virtual summit thing. Well, we have yesterday and today, we've been doing the eCommerce MasterPlan Virtual Summit, a whole day about customer acquisition, which was yesterday, and a whole day about customer retention. It's been a blast. The audience have been really enjoying, I think, and getting a lot out of the talks. You can, as soon as this session finishes, you will be able to go and get the replays of absolutely all these wonderful sessions we had yesterday and the ones we've had live today. If you head to ecmp.info/summit 2022, you can get access to the replays of absolutely everything for free, even if you don't do it until tomorrow. So they're going to be live for a good few weeks now, for you to get your fill of all the great customer acquisition and customer retention tips that my marvelous experts have been sharing over the last 2 days. So please do go and do that. If you're catching us on the live stream, come and join the fun. Come and learn what your colleagues in e-commerce and maybe your competitors in e-commerce have been learning too. Now, the whole point of this summit this year has been about helping retailers to work out how to focus their efforts right for the slightly weird year that is ahead, with the cost of living crisis, your own costs going up, consumers' spending power being squeezed, and of course cookies all dying, competition levels being massively up as well. There's a lot to get your head around as a marketer this year in e-commerce. So that's what the angle we've been taking on everything. In this session, I'm going to be joined shortly by 2 of our speakers from today to answer your questions about the world of customer acquisition marketing. Sorry, customer retention is day 2. Can you tell I've been summiting for 2 days? It's day 2, so it's customer retention day. So we're here to answer your customer retention questions. And if you've got an acquisition question, maybe we'll have time to answer that as well. So if you put that into the chat box, if you are on YouTube, our website, or LinkedIn, and those comments will come straight into me, and I will do my best to get those questions answered. In terms of doing my best to get them answered, the sooner you ask me your questions, the more likely I am to have the time to pose them to our guests. So I hope you will get them in early. That's what I'm saying. Ask your questions now. Do not wait until half an hour's time, because we're going to be live for somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes with this session. Get your questions in, and if you haven't yet signed up to Summit, please sign up via the link that is beneath you. So I think it is now time for me. She says double checking. She said everything she should at this point. Yes, it is. So let us bring on our guests for this session. We've got the lovely Ivana from Stream and the also lovely Becky from Digital Gearbox. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Ivana, would you like to go first? Let our audience know who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, I would love to. So I'm really excited to be here. I am in snowy Edmonton, Alberta. It is snowing here today, but I am with Stream Commerce. So I'm a senior client success manager there. We are a Shopify Plus partner agency. So we do a lot of Shopify Plus website builds, but also marketing strategy for Shopify Plus brands.
Very nice. And Becky.
Hello, I am Becky Hopkin and I am Managing Director and owner of Digital Gearbox. And we are a specialist pay-per-click agency based in Bicester in the UK, for anyone who doesn't know of Bicester. The famous shopping village, as everyone in the UK will know Bicester for. We work with a lot of e-commerce businesses, but we also work with lead gen businesses as well. And we do pay-per-click management and setup across basically any pay-per-click platform. So that includes all the Google ads, shopping, display network, and also Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, paid social, that kind of thing.
Excellent. Thank you, Becky. So we have a very wide-ranging mix of experience here in the episode today, in this live Q&A today. So if you've got questions, get them in sooner rather than later. Just add them in the comments wherever you're watching, and I will do my best to manage to squeeze them in to our discussion today. Now, Becky, Ivana, you weren't here for yesterday's Q&A because that was our customer acquisition one, but what we got quite deep into was how important empathy and connection with your customers is in a year like this one, where, you know, the trend has been about customers wanting more connection. And we were talking about all that from an acquisition standpoint of how to, you know, convince the customer to buy from you in the first place. But it strikes me that story, that message, that, you know, getting your values across, understanding the customer, listening to them is even more important when it comes to retention space. And we kind of strayed into that topic during our chat earlier on SMS, Ivana. So would you agree it's even more crucial to get it right in the world of retention?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I think you've touched on something really important there, because one of the things that I really don't believe in is sending sort of the same message to your entire list, whether that be through email or through SMS, or really any of your channels, and expecting that to just resonate equally across the board. I think now more than ever, people are looking for more personalized experiences, and by really segmenting your audiences based on behaviors that you understand, by, you know, treating your VIPs special because they're spending a lot of money probably on your brand. But, you know, the messaging you sent to them is going to be different than somebody who maybe joined your community 2 weeks ago that's still learning about your brand. So I think personalization it's always important, but especially now, and especially with all the competition that's out there now in e-commerce.
It's something which we discussed with, and those of you who are hoping to hear from Gemma Banks from Klaviyo in this session. Gemma unfortunately cannot join us, but in our session earlier on today with Gemma, we ended up talking a little bit about how it's kind of weird that zero-party data and all that big trend always gets talked about in the realm of acquisition. And actually, you've got more data, you've got more ability to personalize with your existing customers. And then, of course, you can use that and feed it into your ad platforms. So Becky, are you seeing that it's super important when we're doing the retention piece that we are marrying up the audience we're talking to with the message, and that the message is more important than ever? Not to put words in your mouth.
Absolutely. I think people are often very lazy with retention advertising on the paid media platforms. I think people see it as, yes, I've got remarketing set up, I've got my promotion I can push out to people, and yes, I'm doing the remarketing box ticked. Whereas time and time again, we see remarketing campaigns be far more effective if you're segmenting your audience based on the data that you have about them, whether that's the products they've been looking at, whether that's the fact that they already are a customer, or there's someone that hasn't bought from you before, whether there's someone that's downloaded a certain PDF. The more you can collect that information and segment, it gives you the opportunity to think what the next logical step with that person could be, whether it's pushing the sale, pushing an upsell potentially, or even just getting them to have a chat with you. So absolutely, so important that we're collecting that data, creating those audience segments, and then we can think about how we can use them smartly.
Yeah, I think if you're taking anything away from this, everyone watching, empathy, connection, getting the message right is more important than ever before this year. And then I think, Becky, you introduced another really interesting piece into this pie, which is the need to not set and forget, not to go, I've turned on a campaign, I can tick the reactivation, you know, the customer retention piece. Because I think and we covered this a little bit in my discussion with Oliver earlier, where we're going through the case study of the White Company, how he grew it, and how to put together your customer retention plan. Because I think, and I know I've been guilty of this in the past, going, right, we'll set up an email sequence or an SMS sequence, and that's retention dealt with. Because I don't have that sense of how important retention should be. So we know we need to be amending our ads. Do we need to be reviewing, amending, and optimizing our SMS, our email, and our other retention activity, Ivana?
The short answer is yes, absolutely. It's really not set it and forget it. I know even with flows, people think, okay, they're automated. I just set them up and I don't have to look at them or think about them. They're just making me money in my sleep. And yes, you do want them to be generating revenue while you sleep, but at the same time, you want to review them. I do it at least quarterly, because sometimes even the language that you're using in there, if you're speaking about spring, for example, and your campaigns, it's winter, it doesn't make sense. And your customers are smart. They're going to pick up on that and realize that you're not updating these things. So I think absolutely, at least quarterly, I would review them, make sure they're still, the language is right, maybe that the graphics and whatever you're using is right, the links are correct. It's not just set it and don't look at it for 5 years. That's not the way to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of the difficult thing in difficult years is that you have to get all the basics right. Is I really do think if we look back, if we imagine ourselves in January 2023 and we're looking back at who won in e-commerce in 2022, it's going to be those who got the basics in place and who didn't leave holes in the sieve, as it were to fall through. What other advice would you guys give to anyone who is plotting that? I mean, we're in April now, so starting to think about things to test over the summer to be ready for the Q4 onslaught. What should they be making sure they're doing on that retention front? And either of you can jump in first on this one.
From my perspective, I think just starting to collect that zero-party data and to start doing that segmentation. So for your remarketing audiences, I would start by having a look actually in your Google Analytics to look at where the pages on your website are that are getting the traffic, that you might be able to create a kind of sub-segment to do some targeted activity for. Quite often it's pages that people don't even think about, like their blog pages. If you're getting a load of footfall to your blog that you're currently doing the same blanket remarketing message to, these are people that are really engaging with your content, and you might want to try and link some of the messaging that you're putting out to them afterwards to the content you're putting out in your blog. So it's starting to build those audiences so that they're ready to use later in the year, and obviously starting to test some ads to those people and different messaging.
Yeah, the audiences are just so one of those things that if you're not setting it up and you're not recruiting it now, they're not going to be there when you want them to be. It's when you're not slicing and dicing data you've already got, you've got to start capturing it sooner rather than later. Ivana, how about you? What would you be putting on your plan for this year?
Yeah, I think a big thing, especially when we're thinking about Q4, is making sure that our deliverability is good. If there's any work that you have to do in your deliverability, if you're ending up in spam folders, even promotion folders, we want to be hitting inboxes with email all the time, but especially during Q4. So if you're noticing that your deliverability rates are a little bit low, maybe you're getting a lot of like spam complaints, bounces, things like that. It's always good practice to have a clean list. So putting it into your calendar, maybe at least once a month, you're kind of cleaning out your list to make sure you have a very clean and engaged list going into Q4. And for SMS, same thing. Like, we want to make sure that the people that are on those lists want to be on those lists, that they're engaging with what we're sending them, that we're getting those clicks, that we're getting those replies, because we're really priming our audience so that when we go into Q4, we're ready to hit the ground running, and we've done all the legwork already for the first 3 quarters of the year before we even get to Q4.
Another one, guys, get the basics right, get your lists clean. It is one of those which I guess leads on to the fact the more work we can do in the next couple of months to get, I guess in the next 4 months maybe, to get consumers re-engaged with our brand, whether it's our messaging or whether it's buying again. It's kind of like that whole thing. What's the best way to improve customer retention? Well, improve your customer acquisition. What's the best way to improve your Q4 sales? Improve your Q2 and Q3 sales. So I guess that, the more we can build out those automations, both on the ad side of things and on the comms side of things at the moment, then they can just run and deliver for us from now and through Q4 as well.
Yeah, I think it's also getting people to think about how they can join everything up a little bit better, because I think people tend to silo their different marketing channels quite a lot, and they don't even think about, like, I just taking email as an example, that's a traffic opportunity where you could again create an audience based on the landing pages that you're directing people to then create another nice sub audience to remarket to. So I think if people can consider the overall marketing messages and how they can get the different platforms and different routes to market to tie in together, the whole multi-channel marketing that was a big buzzword many years ago, people seem to have forgotten about a bit. So the more we can tie that together, I think is another good idea.
Yeah, I think people don't, like a lot of brands don't really leverage that kind of Klaviyo ad connection where, you
No.
can sync up your Klaviyo audiences to your Facebook. You can target those people on Facebook. You can create lookalike audiences from your most engaged email subscribers. That's a really, really powerful tool. It's really powerful information to have. And I think that would resonate a little bit better with people on like Facebook, Instagram, wherever, because you're targeting people that are either in your list already or look a lot like people who are in your list already versus somebody who's never heard from you before.
Yeah, and that is definitely one of the ways to deal with the death of cookies on Facebook, and the impacts that's made on the algorithm is create your audiences off Facebook and then take them into Facebook. And it's actually kind of, sorry, I keep signposting sessions from the summit, but it's all tying together beautifully. It's almost like I planned it. But we had the whole session with Derek from eCommerce Tech yesterday about how crucial it is to have tech that actually talks to each other. And if it's not working, you are tying your hands behind your back when you're trying to do this, especially when you're trying to work cross team and cross platforms. It just becomes so much more difficult if the right tech isn't in place. Anyone watching, if you've got questions for us live, then please do add them now, okay? Because I need a bit of time to weave them in, and we will run out of time if you're not asking those questions now. If you haven't, we will continue with our general chat about things you should be doing this year. But if you do have questions, get them in quickly. I would love to ask them if you've got them. So we've talked about things we should be doing. We haven't addressed kind of what I always think is the toughest question in the world of marketing retention, which is how do we work out how much budget, how much time to spend on retention? So we mentioned it kind of in passing earlier about, you go, oh, I'll just tick the box. I've set up a reactivation email. I've ticked it. I can forget about that because there's so much else going on in my brain. Is it a case of going, we're going to spend X percentage of our budget? Is it a case of going, we're going to spend 1 day a week on it? Is it, how do we structure it so we're doing the right thing and B, making sure it actually happens? Any tips? Ivana, I'll come to you first on this one.
Yeah, so I think the number that's sort of out there in the e-commerce world is that it's about 5 times cheaper to retain a customer than to acquire a new customer. So when you have somebody who's already bought from you before, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 100 times, it's really important not to neglect those customers. And I think sometimes brands focus a lot on acquiring new customers, which is also very important, but it shouldn't come at the expense of neglecting customers you already have, and vice versa. So, I don't have like an exact number of spend X amount of your budget on acquisition and spend X amount on retention. I think they're both important. And I think for me, the key is really don't neglect one in lieu of the other.
So find the balance. But yeah, I think you're right. It's not a hard and fast for every business. You've got to work out, obviously, if it's day one of your business, acquisition is all. If you're 10 years in, you've probably got more opportunity sitting in the retention side of things. Becky, how would you approach advising someone on it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think, again, it depends where they are on their journey. You need enough traffic from a Google and paid social ad point of view to do these fancy retention strategies I'm talking about. So if you've not got the traffic going to these pages, you've got to think quick how you're going to get some new people to go to those pages to then spend the money on retention marketing. But I think the great thing is you get, with the paid ad side of things, you get the cost per sale, the ROAS metrics to make the scaling decisions with. And time again, as we said, it's cheaper to retain clients than it is to acquire new ones. So I think my focus would always be making sure that those retention campaigns are getting as much budget as they need, because if they're bringing you those returns, why wouldn't you give them the budget that they have to not be limited by budget? And obviously Facebook and Google are very good at telling you if your campaigns are limited by budget, and they won't let you keep that money in your pocket. So there's no one size fits all answer for that question, but certainly I would always prioritize the retention side of things with your paid ads. And it's actually, as long as you've got some traffic, it's a great place to start with paid advertising, because if your messaging doesn't work with the people that already know you and already are engaging with you, then why would it work with people that have never heard from you before? So as long as you've got traffic going to your website, whether it's through email marketing, organically, if you've never done any paid advertising, actually starting with some retention campaigns is a great place to start with paid advertising.
Yeah, you kind of like, it's like a warm audience to test in front of. I think you made another interesting point there, that of course the amount you can do with retention is partly limited by the size of your list, whether that's traffic to the website or number of buyers. So I get, if I think back historically, when I've worked with people on this, we've often had the problem of not being able to do as much as we want to. So maybe the project, the challenge here is less budget allocation and more time allocation, because acquisition is just so much noisier. It's one of the reasons we've done a whole day on retention, is because everyone's talking acquisition, and you kind of, retention gets lost in the mix because it is such a more noisy subject. It's where the bigger numbers often are, even if the profit isn't so much there. So would you say it's more a focus and a time issue than a budget issue? Ivana, what do you think?
I mean, I do think it is a bit of both, because, just to touch on something that both of you said earlier, when you, especially as a new brand, when you build a website, I've worked with merchants before where they built this beautiful website and then they kind of sit there and they're like, okay, the sales aren't coming. And I have to ask them, okay, well, what are you doing to drive traffic? So just because you build it doesn't mean customers will come. You do have to drive people to the site somehow, whether that is whether you have an existing email list, whether it is through ads, whether it's through influencer marketing or affiliate marketing, organic search. I mean, there's all these different channels, and obviously your budget's going to dictate how much you can put towards each channel. So if you don't have a big budget, maybe you start with, something like influencer marketing, if you can't be spending, however much you need to spend on Facebook or Google and whatnot. But there is the time component there, because you have to go out, you have to find these influencers, you have to nurture those relationships. Like it all takes time. So there's definitely a component of both time and money to that. And it just depends on where you're at in your journey in terms of, are you going to be spending a bit more time, or is it going to be a budget thing?
And Becky, anything else to add on that one?
No, I think from a Google ads and Facebook ads point of view, I mean, it takes the same amount of time to set up a campaign. It takes longer to build those audiences that we spoke about. It should take less time to see if a campaign is working or not with a warmer audience. So yeah, no clear time benefit either side. I think it's just being aware that there should be two very different strategies for both of those audiences. And again, that's something that not many people think about.
Yeah. Well, look, guys, we're going to start running towards the end of our session now. So I'm going to pose one last question from me to Becky and Ivana. And if any of you out there watching have got a question, this is your final call to send a question in. If not, I'm sure, we'll find a way of, you can send them in later and we'll do our best to answer them later. But my last question, whilst you're all busily typing, hopefully, is if you're speaking to an e-commerce business owner who's not totally in the startup zone, but not doing multi-millions of turnover, and they wanted to do one thing to improve their retention this year, what one tactical strategy would you advise them to do? And you are allowed to reiterate the thing we talked about earlier today if you want to. Becky, I'll come to you first.
I'm going to be really boring and say do some remarketing, but that is on the caveat that, of course, you've got some traffic going to your website already. And I think whether you try that remarketing through Facebook or through Google Display or through Google Discovery that I spoke about, just try it. Make sure you're not just paying to get people to your website and then not following up with those people, because they are your warmest, hottest opportunities. It's like having people enter your shop and then ignoring them afterwards.
Yeah, if you think if 100 people come to your website, less than 5 of them are going to buy. The other 95 were interested enough to come to your website, so do something with it, please. And Ivana, your top number one thing you do.
I'm going to have to go back to personalizing your messaging. So have a campaign calendar in place. Think about what you're sending, why you're sending it, who you're sending it to, especially with SMS. Don't just send it because you have to check a box for that day to, I don't know, tell your boss that you sent a text message that day, or, with text messages, especially, I said this in my session earlier, but ask yourself if your message is worth interrupting the person's day. If it's not, then why are you sending it? So that's sort of the litmus test that I like to use with email and with SMS.
I love it. Get organized, get those audiences and get shouting to them all. But not only shouting if it's going to be worth interrupting their day for, I should add in there. Ivana, Becky, thank you so much for coming and joining us for the Q&A as well as your sessions today. I know everyone's had a great amount of interest from you. So if you could just both remind everyone how to get in contact with you if they want to find out more about you and what they do, that would be awesome. Ivana, we'll come to you first.
Yeah, so check out streamcommerce.com to learn a little bit more about Stream Commerce, or if you're interested in working with us. And I am on LinkedIn, so my inbox is always open. I welcome connection requests from all viewers today.
Excellent. Thank you, Ivana. And Becky?
So you can find Digital Gearbox at www.digitalgearbox.co.uk. We're on all the social channels at Digital Gearbox, nice and easy to find. And connect with me direct on LinkedIn as well. And if you've got any questions you want to pose to us after this, you can do it through that way.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you both, ladies. I'm going to take you off screen now and then just let everyone else know what's happening next. So bye.
Bye.
So that is the end of our final session of the e-commerce MasterPlan Virtual Summit 2022. I hope you've got a lot out of it. If you've joined us live, thank you for coming along live. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion on that kind of bigger picture of retention. The event replays are available. I know a lot of you are watching it kind of over my night and outside of work hours and all the rest of it. So the replays are there right now for you. If you are watching this on one of the live streams and you haven't been to the Summit site yet, please do come and join us for free. All of the sessions of the Summit, that's 5 expert sessions on customer acquisition, 5 expert sessions on customer retention, Q&As about both days and my intros to both days. All of that will be, most of it's available right now as a replay. This session will be available as a replay very, very soon. So just head to ecmp.info/summit 2022 to get your access to all of that. And thank you so much for being part of our event. It's been a pleasure getting to chat with these experts and putting together a range of content that I just know is going to help you make this year the best it can possibly be for your brand. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone who's been involved in the summit. Thank you to our sponsors as well. And bye for now.
Stop leaving money on the table and start driving consistent revenue through customer support. Join the more than 8,000 e-commerce brands relying on Gorgeous to upgrade their customer support. Add the app today to try it out for free and experience the difference of customer support designed for e-commerce.
Meet Johnny. He's a PPC expert at Digital Gearbox. He takes businesses' money and makes more money by generating clicks, leads, and sales. No, he's not a magician, but he's a PPC expert at Digital Gearbox. Find out more today at digitalgearbox.co.uk.
Ever ask yourself the question, what is the best tool for X when it comes to one of those Shopify apps that you just need for your store? Check out this list of over 240 Shopify apps that were vetted personally by me across 50 categories. Go to ecomtech.landscape to download this PDF now. It's massive. It's like 36 megabyte file.